Hello everyone, welcome to Newsflash. We have a great show for you. We're going to be talking about Mexico tariffs. What will that mean for the economy? That seems to be even more likely as Mick Mulvaney made a comment about it over the weekend that we need to get to. Talking about President Trump's looming state visit with Great Britain, California and the Democratic 2020 race, Mike Pompeo and Middle East peace. We'll also try and squeeze, maybe if we can, a few more stories in there. But first, here on this live news flash, it all started a few years ago with the investigation with Robert Mueller. We all know we followed very intensely here on, not really intensely here on the show, but it's been a big all-consuming thing for the Democrats, for America, and we've all really kind of bit our nails to figure out what's happening. And now that we know, there is not as much of a clear resolution that we really would have hoped. There is a big debate in California. Democrats and really the country have deep divisions about how to handle increasing calls for President Donald Trump's impeachment. It's an issue that even the most left-wing Democrats could disagree on, even the most right-wing Democrats. Normally you have two factions in the Democratic Party, the more left-wing, the more right-wing Democrats. They're divided on this, but really, it's just no one can really figure out what to do. You have Nancy Pelosi, who is very much against it. She's probably worried, as am I, that if there is a debate over impeachment proceedings that eventually die in the Senate, it will lead to massive Republican gains in the Houses of Parliament. But there is, on the other side, concerns from people like Elizabeth Warren, who have come out for impeachment and said that there is no way we can let President Donald Trump get away with what he's doing here in terms of obstructing justice, in terms of stonewalling investigations, in terms of all the other norms he's broken, all the possible business violations he's broken, the thing with the campaign violations, emoluments clause stuff. Like, there are things beyond even more that could be impeachable. So they make that case, but again, and meanwhile, Democrats, trying to fight and get the country a little bit more behind this. I do want to have a discussion with this about this with someone, so that's why I'm so glad Glenn Bradford has agreed here today to join us. Glenn, thank you so much for joining us. And I'd like to start by asking, what is your position on this very divisive issue in the Democratic Party?
I'm with the Elizabeth Warren camp. I think they should impeach him, whether the Senate convicts him or not. And I think it's, like she said, it's a matter of principle. And if you're too much, I think the Democrats will be seen as too cowardice if they don't follow through on this, too weak. And it will set a very bad precedent going forward for future presidents who think they can get away with just about anything they want if their party is in control of the Senate. I think that impeaching him will hurt him politically, not help him. I think that's a very open question as to which way that's going to go. I think certainly President Trump would make a lot of, he would campaign on the fact that he was acquitted by the Senate and so forth, and that the Democrats had overreached and so forth. But on the other hand, if the Democrats just sit on their hands and don't impeach him, then he'll campaign on that as well. And he'll just say that even the Democrats didn't think he was guilty because they didn't start an impeachment inquiry against me.
Or and he'll I think there's a possibility he could say that, like, there is, like, the Democrats, folks, they want to impeach me. They're going to try and get me. So either way, it's kind of a lose-lose for the Democrats.
I do, but I also think that starting an impeachment inquiry will raise the consciousness level of a lot of Americans who have probably almost tuned out now about the Mueller findings, and that will get them interested in it again. And I think that I think President Clinton, even though he was acquitted in the Senate, I think it did hurt him politically. So I don't think that it's that much of a political problem for the Democrats if they go after them. If they can make a solid enough case to the public, I think the public will respect their inquiry and inevitable impeachment that would follow from it. I don't think there'll be the political blowback that the Republicans got in the Clinton impeachment.
Yeah, I think it definitely all depends on how good of a case they make for impeachment. Like, if they say something that's not really convincing, there's no real evidence that could be appealing to people, I mean, I think it's not going to really work, and there probably will be a bit of a political blowback, but I think it's going to be really tough is reaching these people who think that Trump was completely exonerated, which is like, it's a pretty sizable portion of the country, even more sizable than maybe you might think. And that reason, like that fact, is going to be a tough thing for them to grapple with. I saw clips, even on MSNBC, of this woman who was like, and I was watching the show before we actually started the show, so it's kind of fresh in my mind, but it was like, this woman was like, I wasn't under the impression until that there was anything wrong at all in the Mueller report, anything that hit Trump at all in any way. I thought it was complete and total exoneration, like in the words of Trump. And then she attended the Justin Amash town hall where he was like, okay, we need to impeach. There's real problems with the Mueller report. Or he said he's engaged in impeachable conduct. And that really changed her mind. I think that's going to be so important. It rests very, very strongly on the case that the Democrats have to make. So, yeah, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she was at home. She was on her home turf in the California Democratic Convention yesterday. And a man shouted from the back of the convention hall, stuffed with thousands of delegates to the state Democratic Party convention. She said, quote, "Impeach Donald Trump," uttering a battle cry that Pelosi had rebuffed despite growing demands from her party's activist wing, saying President Trump will be held accountable for her actions. But the I word, she's very, very careful about this because she thinks, I mean, again, her Democratic majority would be under threat. And I mean, I would have to ask, like, if we were to go about this possible idea of impeachment, like, what would be the most effective thing in your mind to go after?
Well, I mean, there's the whole thing about obstruction of justice. There's certainly a very good case to be made for that. You had those 800 or 900 former federal prosecutors who signed a joint letter that said that if it was anyone but the president of the United States who had done these things to obstruct justice, then he would have been charged. So there's certainly that. There's the campaign finance felonies that were charged to Michael Cohen, for which the president is a co-conspirator. They can hit on that. I don't think they've hit on that nearly enough. They need to bring that front and center. And then, of course, there's all these ongoing investigations trying to get at the president's finances, his taxes, his accounting firm documents, the Deutsche Bank and Capital One bank documents. There's the Trump organization. I don't mean the Trump organization. I mean the charity, the Trump charity.
Trump Foundation, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And emoluments. And then there's this whole counterintelligence case that is probably still ongoing within the FBI, which I think me and a lot of other people believed would have come out more in the Mueller report, but it didn't. Apparently, Mueller's remit was too narrow to cover that, and a lot of that I think remains secret. Adam Schiff and Devin Nunes have requested the counterintelligence documents about this case from the Justice Department, and apparently they're going to get it. So that's probably top secret stuff, but I don't know how that's going to play out if it can in the impeachment process. But the very serious stuff could be in there that we just don't know about.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to find some stuff about that. I mean, at this point, I kind of have a hard time really believing that there's anything that's going to hammer Trump. Like, if there is, that like it would really surprise me. But and I really don't think we should really kind of rely on that. And because I am kind of inclined to think that this is my two conflicting views that, well, it's going to hurt them. It's going to be a political problem, and it shouldn't be something they focus on. It could be a little bit of a distraction for the issues that they want to campaign on. The Democrats, who were very successful by not really campaigning on Russia investigation, even as it was happening. Because, I mean, I don't really think that many people want to hear that. But on the other hand, if they're able to make a good case, then, I mean, there's a very, it's a pretty possible that it won't hurt them politically, actually end up being very, very effective. I mean, again, definitely, it's going to polarize the country, obviously, but I don't know how much of a concern that should be, as opposed to for the Democrats, because, I mean, it's just there's some things that even they need to be done, and it's not like, I mean, there's only so much more polarized this country really can get, and it's a really interesting contrast because you heard about Nancy Pelosi, how she handled calls for impeachment. Kamala Harris, less than an hour later, was saying very different things, also from California. Stepped to the podium. She said, "We need to begin impeachment proceedings." The party's deep divisions were fresh last week when remarks by former special counsel Robert Mueller raised new questions about whether Trump had committed impeachable violations, played out time and time again during the first full day of the weekend convention that they have across the nation. The Democrats' dueling messages highlighted the dilemma confronting the party's congressional leaders and presidential hopefuls: how to balance the demands of a pretty anti-Trump base without alienating more moderate voters who helped hand them the House in 2018 and could deliver the presidency in 2020. And I mean, that's like, how do you answer that? How do you look at that predicament?
Well, I mean, Nancy Pelosi, I have to respect her political acumen. I mean, she's certainly a lot better at it than I am, and she's been at this a long, long time. And she knows her party. She knows that it's not just all, liberal Democrats. There's a lot of moderate Democrats who won in 2018, and she wants to hold those seats. She's very worried about losing those seats in 2020 and losing the House, essentially. That's what she's really afraid of, losing her own power. But on the other hand, we do have to rile up the Democratic base as well. There's a large constituent of our base that really wants impeachment. And if they don't impeach, or if they don't at least start an inquiry, I wonder if that's going to affect turnout in the Democratic base in 2020.
And honestly, I think really riling up the base of the party, which is, by the way, what the Republicans have done for years and been very, very successful at it, like, that would really help to boost turnout. That would really fire things up. Like, paint the picture of someone who's really getting away with something, and the Democrats need, the Democrat electeds need the support of the Democratic base to help hold Trump accountable, because he is trying his hardest to stop us, yada, yada, yada. You get the idea. And, if that pitch is really made effectively across the country, and here's the key thing, not just in the presidential race, because this is going to be a really important 2020 election all across the country because of gerrymandering concerns, that could be really kind of a game changer, in my opinion. If they're able to make that case, that could turn people out. Sure, the Republicans will probably be turned out, but I really feel like they have the same kind of turnout anyway, because their base is really old. It goes to the polls quickly. But the Democrats, they lose, in my opinion, when turnout is low and when the young voters don't get out there. And I think that impeachment, pushing for possible impeachment, at least getting the base riled up against Trump, is going to do wonders for them.
Yes, I mean, I certainly think there's a lot of anti-Trump people who are going to vote against him anyway. But there's probably a lot of people who will be extremely disappointed at the Democrats if they don't do anything. If they just sit back and let Trump walk all over them, I think it's going to be a big disappointment for a lot of very strong minds.